Greetings. Welcome to Wednesday with Green Mountain Monastery Community. This evening, we're very happy to have Venerable Āyasmā Ariyadhammika with us. Āyasmā, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to.
So I'll start off with just reading a short biography of Āyasmā. So Venerable Ariyadhammika is an Austrian-born Buddhist monk who ordained in 2005 in Myanmar with Pāli Sayadaw as his preceptor. So he maintained a very simple life, living out in the open and under trees, dedicating himself to mindfulness of breathing and other meditation objects. He was initiated into the meditation techniques of Mokok, Mahasi, Shweyumin, Utejaniya, and Sunlun. In 2010, he went to Thailand, and where he stayed for 3 years, training at various renowned forest monasteries, including at Wat Bananachat, where I met him in probably 2010, actually, I think, which was great. It was great to meet you then. And then from 2013 to 2015, he was living in Malaysia, studying Pāli, Suttas, and Vinaya under the guidance of Venerable Agachita Mahathera. And after that time, he went and trained for some years in Sri Lanka. And then in January 2018, he returned to Malaysia, where he was appointed as Sangha Nayaka, or guiding elder, of Sasanaraka Buddhist Sanctuary and Monk Training Center, dedicating himself to guiding and supporting fellow monastics. So, yeah, we thought to actually focus tonight's interview. We've interviewed you once before. Focus tonight's interview specifically on the training, and specifically monastic training and the systems, both that you've experienced and that you've implemented there at Sasanaraka. So maybe if you could just give some background about the system of monastic training that you entered into at Pāli.
Well, good evening, everyone. Greetings from SBS Monk Training Center here in Malaysia. Actually, I'm coming from the future. Here it's already Thursday 9 a.m. Whereas at your place it's evening time. Nonetheless, you're asking about monk training and in general, and also particularly in Pāli. I also have to say that not every monastery where I stayed is a monk training center. In fact, only very few are. And the difference is that every monastery specializes, or most monasteries specialize in different things, either meditation or studies. There's only very few in the world that consider themselves, or that I would consider well-rounded or complete monk training centers that emphasize on giving guidance, support to monks. So where monks are not just self-reliant on their own practice, almost like autodidacts, but getting support from the whole community, including a teacher, ideally. So yeah, when it comes to Pāli, I think the key features definitely would be guidance in formal meditation. There's even encouragement to see your meditation teacher, in my case, Pāli Sayadaw, or sometimes also other teachers, on a daily basis for daily interviews. Which is kind of unheard of in the Thai tradition, for example. And can be, especially at the beginning, very helpful. You can discuss all your little issues and monitor together with the teacher whether there's any progress. So in that sense, that is very well emphasized, very strong emphasis on that. Also, Vinaya standards in Pāli are also very decent. Yes, there's a commentarial bent to that, but nonetheless, pretty good, excellent standards, I would have to say. And so much so that there's almost a discouragement sometimes within the Pāli tradition from even visiting other monasteries, going other places, because you kind of never know, are they accepting money? Are they upholding the Vinaya? So they often try to stay quite self-contained, which has advantages if you want to be safe in terms of Vinaya, but also the disadvantage that you become a bit encapsulated and you're not very open and not very, how to say, you don't have much exposure to anything outside of your little bubble. So pros and cons, of course. But these are definitely the key strengths, I would see in the Baok tradition: formal meditation guidance, and also good solid Vinaya standards.
Thank you, Bhante. And after Pa'ok in Burma, you went to Thailand, I think. And just about the training system you encountered in Thailand, and what distinctions did you find between that and what you found in Pa'ok? Things that supplemented, or just what differences?
Well, I mentioned just earlier about the strengths that I encountered in the Baok tradition, but there are also certain imbalances. One is there's not so much emphasis on monastic etiquette, how to behave as a monk, how to act, how to speak. Also, I was never encouraged really to learn or memorize any chants, the teachings of the Buddha. Also, there was no training about how to look after one's teacher. So many of those more daily life aspects of monastic life and monastic training are not very much emphasized. It's mainly a meditation center. The same for practical skills like sewing robes, making brooms. Nobody learned any of those things. For 5 years in Baok, I have not sewn a single robe. So later then, after these first 5 years, I wanted to learn also things that I felt maybe were a bit underemphasized in my early training. Yes, I got a lot of meditation, formal meditation training. I'm very grateful for that. But then also I did recognize there's more to monk's life than this alone. And Wat Bananajat in Thailand had and still has a particularly good reputation as a monk training center. And I was always very inspired when I heard the name Monk Training Center. So I thought, after my 5th Vassa, I would like to visit and stay there for a while. This is also where we met eventually. So yes, Wat Bananajat, Thailand, a very different emphasis. There, I would say Samanasanya, monastic etiquette, is a big thing. A strong emphasis on that. How to act as a monk, what to do, what not to do, how to relate to laity, how to relate to other monks. Also, in terms of meditation practice, in Baok is very formal meditation emphasis, sitting cross-legged. Maybe if you want, you can do a bit of walking meditation. But in the Ajahn Chah lineage, as you of course know, there's much more emphasis on daily life practice, not just formal sitting and walking, but also bringing mindfulness into our daily activities, sweeping, sewing, even constructing places or kutis. When I came to Nanajat, the church just started with a building project where for a whole year we would build a new meditation hall or Dhamma hall, the Sala. So I came just in time for the beginning of that project. You can imagine how I felt after 5 years of no physical activity, just sitting cross-legged with closed eyes, and suddenly I find myself on a construction site, bending iron, mixing concrete, and all the rest. But that was actually very helpful to learn also how to function well, not just sitting on the cushion, but also in daily life and bringing that mindfulness into the daily life. It was not easy at first, but quite important, I have to say.
Yeah, when I first arrived to Wat Bananachat, the sala had already been built. So the fruit of your work had come to completion, and it was a really legendary time almost. I remember seeing photos of, all the monks working with Lumpur Liam, who's the abbot of Wat Nong Papong, and just very, very inspiring scenes to me. But I remember when I met you, I think you had already gone and spent some time, or were going to spend some time with Lumpur Ban and with Lumpur Tui, and maybe with Ajahn Dan already. Those, for me at the time, these were the monasteries that I had held up in my mind as being the most strict and having, the best, what they call korwat, or monastery etiquette, and specific, even over and above, what the Buddha laid out, or at least really going way back to these initial descriptions of the way that the Buddha recommended in these Vinaya texts for monks to look after the monastery, you know, a lot of sweeping and extreme simplicity. Do you have any takeaways from each one of those, or does something come out, you know, as something you've taken from those monasteries into your training at SBS?
Yeah, from both of them, of course, they are quite similar in their emphasis. You have much more free time if you compare this kind of Dhammayut forest monasteries, Kubajan style, with, for example, Wat Bananajat. There's much more time for individual practice, not so much emphasis on doing things as a community. So in that sense, that I enjoyed a little bit because that felt quite natural for me after so many years in Myanmar. And then, as you say, also very strong emphasis on core what? Monastic duties, discipline. Ajahn Lumpur Tui, for example, many things I had the impression is almost the same as they might have done it during Ajahn Mun's time himself, in terms of core what. You fetch the water from a well. They don't have water pipes, you know. You have to go together, 5-10 monks, and you have to pull the rope and pull out the bucket from deep down in the well. And then that's also not enough. You put it out. That takes about 10 minutes or something. And then you have to distribute the water in all the different places, to the sala, to the dining hall, individual kutis. So it takes maybe altogether, 30 minutes, 45 minutes every day. But it's a very good practice of doing together, working together, establishes a sense of samadhi, communion, shared activities among the community members. It's a very good bonding experience, I have to say. Even though at the time, of course, it's also tiring and straining, but I kind of enjoyed it.
The dichotomy of, you know, you trained in Sri Lanka as well, but honestly, I kind of feel like just focusing a bit more on that dichotomy of the Thai training, which so emphasizes the communal aspect and work and daily mindfulness. And then the Burmese training, which is really deeply focused on meditation. And I guess two questions there. One is, I know the Burmese system of meditation, it's intimidatingly complex, and it sets a high bar. I think there's like 40 different objects. You're supposed to attain, you know, jhana with each one before. I'm not quite, but it's a very complex system. Whereas the system you encounter, like say with Longpo Cha, would be much more kind of a bit more ambiguous, anapanasati with a bit of Buddho, and focusing this communal aspect. So first, how effective for moderns or Westerners or whatever, do you see that long-term strict focus on meditation, which on the surface sounds quite attractive, actually? And how nourishing was the communal aspect after you found your way to it? Do you think you could have, you know, really, how easy would it have been to persist in robes in the Burmese system for you? I know, fraught questions, but genuinely curious.
Yeah, I think it may not have to be a question of either or, this or that. So one can have periods in one's spiritual life, spiritual training, whether it's as a monk or as a layperson, where one emphasizes more on one aspect. So like the formal meditation practice. I do think, particularly at the beginning, at the very beginning, it is helpful to have some structure, guidance, regularly checking in with a teacher if possible. That is very beneficial, I think. But do you need it for the rest of your life? Hopefully not. Because in the end, you want to become increasingly self-reliant, and not because you know everything better, but also over time we learn not just from our own experience, that is very important also, and also from the Buddha's experience, where increasingly, in my ideal world, increasingly a practitioner also goes to the suttas and derives inspiration, guidance, advice directly from the Buddha. At the very beginning, most of us, we are not sutta experts. So we rely a lot on contemporary teachers to tell us, do this, don't do that. Or this is how you do Anapana, this is how you do Asubha, this is how you do Metta. But then over time, we become more and more familiar also with the Buddha's own guidance based on the suttas. And that can, to a large degree, then substitute for a living teacher, for a living meditation master. It's still good to seek advice from time to time, but one is much less dependent on it. So there's also the dichotomy, formal practice, not formal practice. I think both are important, because sometimes when you have time and you're free to dedicate some time to meditation, I think formal meditation is very important, very supportive. And for many people, we can go deeper into formal practice than just in daily life activities. Yet, there is a daily life for everyone. So you cannot survive and live just with closed eyes and sitting cross-legged. So therefore, if you can only practice on the meditation cushion, this means all the rest of the day is non-meditation time. That is also not ideal. So we want to have continuity in the practice and having as little interruptions as possible. So having a mode of practice that allows us also to bring mindfulness into our daily activities, that is supportive. And then later, go back again on the sitting cushion, continue the momentum, build on that. So I think both aspects are very important. And yes, one might have a period one emphasizes more on this one, a period where one emphasizes more on the other, but they are not, I don't see them as mutually exclusive.
Well, probably introducing another thing, which is, not an either or an or. You're just continuing your biography, coming from this strong meditation focus in Burma, then to this strong communal, to some degree, work ethic and the etiquette aspect in Thailand. And then after that, you moved to Malaysia and, said you studied Pāli and suttas and Vinaya. I'm curious if you could say more about that and if there were any specific training modalities or study modalities that you took from that time with Venerable Maha Agachita into your training at SBS.
Sure. By that time, I was about 8 vasa. So my basic Buddhist education, there was a certain basic already established. So when I stayed together with Bhante Agachita, it was just the two of us. At that time, he was not abbot of SBS anymore, not active abbot. So he was staying alone in his hermitage, to which he invited me. So we just the two of us stayed together. It's a wonderful opportunity. And so we did both our individual practice. And then once a day, we would meet for Pāli studies, where I would do my own exercises first. He would do corrections. Also, he encouraged me to practice daily life usage of Pāli. So meaning to say, we don't speak English anymore, and we only speak Pāli, whatever daily life things we need, or I want to ask him, or any conversation, all in Pāli.
Nice.
I didn't have much to say anymore. It was almost like noble silence. I guess actually we lack, or at least I lacked a lot of vocabulary of daily life things. A towel, what is the name of washing machine, washing powder, my goodness. But it was really helpful also just to get a feeling for the language. And then of course we would still use English when it doesn't work in any other way. But yeah, this is one thing we did together. And then also I had a long list of questions about Vinaya and also suttas, knowing that Bhante Agachita is an expert in the Vinaya also. So also we went through many of my long-standing questions that I had since years and was seeking clarity on those things. So it was not a very formal program that we had together, but it was a good opportunity to learn from him and seek clarifications, look things up together in the Pāli or the commentaries. And in terms of methodology and the rigor that he brings to that, I found that very inspiring.
Just looking at Ajahn Kovilo about that one day of Pāli a week, I feel like if you wanted to get me to talk less, that would be the way.
Tell me the day, Ajahn. We're on.
Bhante, there's in terms of not leaning into the either or aspect, actually SBS embodies that beautifully, because I know one of the structures you set up there is that the monks who are training there have, I think, a week or 2 weeks of no schedule, or very little schedule, where they're allowed to really just guide their own practice and focus on formal sitting. And then 2 weeks of much more structured time where there's more study and communal work and meetings and learning. And I found that to be a fascinating and quite beautiful model. And I think I might be misrepresenting it, but would you say more about, yeah, this is a good kind of funnel into the system you've set up at SBS. If you'd speak a bit about that schedule, I'd appreciate it, and your logic behind it.
Sure. I mean, that dates back to a very early question I often had in my mind, even in my first few years as a monk already, which is how much study, or this controversy between study versus practice. How much study is required? Is any study required? Or should I just practice? And asking different monks and teachers, you will get quite different answers. And so some will say, you don't need to study at all. You just practice, and then the Dhamma will become clear through your own experience. Otherwise, it's just book knowledge. That's one extreme. The other extreme is, if you just practice without studying first, you're just following your own views and ideas. You have to use the teachings as your guidance to inform the practice. So you have to study well and much, and only then you can practice well. So that was a kind of an open question I had for a while. And intuitively, I saw value in both, but I didn't have a clear answer to this riddle. Until I stumbled upon this Dhamma Vihari Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, Anguttara 5.73. And there, the Buddha speaks of a monk, of a bhikkhu, who learns the Dhamma. And he passes the day in learning the Dhamma, but neglects seclusion, does not devote himself to internal serenity of the mind. Also, he does not go further and understand the meaning of the Dhamma with wisdom. Then the Buddha calls this monk, this is a monk called absorbed in learning, not one who dwells in the Dhamma. And then he goes on to speak of another type of monk who teaches the Dhamma and passes the whole day teaching the Dhamma, but again, neglects seclusion and does not devote himself to development of wisdom. Then he calls him a Dhamma teacher, but not one who dwells in the Dhamma. And then he goes on to speak of another monk, a Dhamma reciter, somebody who recites a lot, memorizes. Now, all these things have been praised by the Buddha in other areas. And then another monk who ponders things, examines, and mentally inspects the Dhamma. But then again, the Buddha calls him a thinker, not one who dwells in the Dhamma. And then lastly, the Buddha says, again, a bhikkhu learns the Dhamma. But he does not pass the day solely in learning the Dhamma. He does not neglect seclusion, but devotes himself to this internal serenity of mind, to samatha practice. And also, he goes further and understands its meaning with wisdom. So samatha and vipassana. And then the Buddha says, it is in this way that a bhikkhu is called one who dwells in the Dhamma. Wow. So what is the conclusion? What's the takeaway of this? The Buddha recommends Dhamma study and practice side by side, not one or the other. So once I heard that sutta, that solved a little bit my dilemma that I had for so long time. And eventually then much later, now in SBS, it also became the blueprint for how we spend our days here, where we see value both in the Dhamma studies and the practice.
Yeah,
So I have to admit, of course, in SPS, you were alluding to the schedule. We do give much more time to meditation. If you were to just count the hours, it's way more time that we spend in meditation than actual Dhamma studies. But definitely both can and should be part of our regular routines. So a good balance doesn't have to be 50-50. To me, I think that would be quite heavy on the study side, but definitely being part of what we do, that I find quite important.
Mm-hmm. Just to drill in a little bit there about the meditation side of things, so there are different ways that different monasteries encourage meditation. Like some places, like it's the assumption that all the monks will be meditating alone by themselves in their own huts. Whereas you have a system like Pā'ok where everyone's expected to meditate together as a group. Do you have both modes, or what's the balance of group practice versus solo practice in the course of a day or the course of a year? Like at some monasteries, they'll have winter retreat or the range retreat where they're, everyone's practicing all together for 3 months or whatnot. But for the rest of the year, it's less emphasis on the practice, the formal practice.
Yeah. As you were alluding to already a bit earlier, we have these periods in SPS where there's 2 weeks of what we call a scheduled period, where there's group chanting in the morning, then a group meditation, arms round, then sutta study for group sutta reading for 45 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Vinaya class, Tuesday and Thursday for 45 minutes each, group meal. Then in the afternoon, then we have a meditation period, individual meditation then. The morning meditation was as a group. Afternoon from 3 to 5:30 is individual practice. People, if they want to sit together in the meditation hall, is okay. But many choose to meditate in their kuti or wherever they wish. That's also okay. And then there's a communal afternoon drink time at 5:30. And then at 7:30 is, again, group meditation for 1 hour, open-ended. Those who want to sit longer can stay on or go back to your kuti afterwards. So this is during the scheduled period from Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday is always off. There's no group activities. So Saturday, Sunday is always individual practice. But then after 2 weeks of that scheduled period, we go into 2 weeks of unscheduled period, where there's no group chanting, no group meditation sessions, and people practice on their own. And the reason for that is, I've been to quite a few monasteries over in my early years as a monk, and I've seen different schedules, different systems, and met great monks. Not just the senior monks or abbots, but also practitioners in those places. But what I observed from time to time is a certain monk who stays in a monastery for a long time is doing very well, almost like the perfect monk, perfect practitioner. And then he moves on, he becomes a bit more senior, maybe 5 vasa, and stays by himself somewhere, either in a cave or goes on thudong. And funny enough, or not so funny, the entire practice falls apart. How can it be? I thought this is such a competent, accomplished monk. How can it be that now he cannot do it anymore? The reason is because if you've never learned to look after yourself, you always depended on a structure where the teacher says, now is the time to do this, now is the time to do that. So you were never had to bring up your own motivation, your own making mistakes, of course, learning from them, and knowing how to structure a day without anyone looking over your shoulder. And having seen that a few times with monks, I thought, no, we cannot wait 5 years and then release people into the wild, having no training in how to be self-reliant. That's why maybe 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks of group activities, still meditation part of that, of course. But then also after that, 2 weeks individual practice. And then it's up to the monk how he uses that individual practice time. He can use it mainly for meditation, it's good. He can also spend time in the library and study. So that is all up to him. And then after these 2 weeks, we come together again. And then at the next time we meet, normally I meet with the monks once a week individually for check-in period. And then I will often ask, how was your unscheduled period? How did you spend your time? Are you satisfied with how you spent your time? And then sometimes it turns out, well, actually now I've been reading much more than I wanted to. I didn't meditate enough. Or maybe the opposite. I'm not saying only meditation. The unscheduled period is not only for meditation. It's meant for whatever you need, whatever you think helps you the most at that time. So you structure on your own the day how you wish. And I think that is very important to learn, even in the first 5 years as a monk. And to be honest, if you were to ask into our community, anyone who would like to go back just to have always the same schedule, it would be impossible to bring them back. I think there would be almost a revolution if I were to suggest that. So actually, it's really hard to go back to all scheduled period. Even myself, I quite enjoyed this back and forth between 2 weeks of schedule and 2 weeks freestyle.
I kind of want to pause, Tanajan, on sort of bringing all these principles down to the lay people listening quickly. So please take your time with this answer. But these three aspects of first, the meditation, like for a very devoted practitioner who's living the lay life, they have a job, maybe a family, but are very sincere. What would you recommend for kind of their meditation practice and a regimen of study? And then I was going to ask how they can maintain mindfulness in daily life, but I feel like those first two are plenty for this moment. Yeah, like if you had a very sincere Upasaka disciple, what would you tell them about their regimen of meditation on a daily, weekly, and yearly basis? And then how should they begin diving into study as well?
Of course, it largely depends on the availability of time. So it makes a difference whether somebody has barely 30 minutes in the whole day, or you can spare an hour or maybe even 2 hours. Of course, with 2 hours, you can do much more than with 30 minutes. I guess if you have only 30 minutes, I would probably then use that time more or less exclusively for meditation. And maybe on weekends or holidays where you have more time, you can do a little bit of sutta studies or listening to Dhamma talks based on the suttas, like the series that you are conducting yourselves, or Bhikkhu Bodhi's series on the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta Nipata. But if a person has a bit more than just 30 minutes, well, then I would say, yes, meditate a bit in the morning, even if it's for half an hour, 20 minutes, good. If you can do a second meditation session in the evening, that would be even more beneficial. Because then whatever happens throughout the day is encapsulated by these two equalizers. And that really establishes a balance, both to go into the day, but then also in the end of the day to round it off. In terms of meditation method, most practitioners, whether you're a monk or a layperson, you might need on the long term, on the long run, something that, at least one method that helps you to tranquilize the mind. That when the mind is a bit agitated or restless, that helps you settle down. Some samatha-based practice. For many practitioners, can be mindfulness of breathing. But then sometimes you're already quite calm, or maybe even a bit tired or sluggish. At that time, this might not be the ideal method for you. Because if at that time, now I use something that is even more tranquilizing, even though I'm tired already, I might as well just fall asleep or not away during meditation. So at that time, we might need something that is more agitating, not in terms of leading to restlessness, but more arousing, or maybe a reflection style of practice, where we contemplate the Four Noble Truths. How do they apply to me? On suffering, in which aspects of my life do I suffer? What occasions of my day do I suffer? Where is discomfort? And then the cause. Is there any craving involved? Am I contributing in any way to that suffering? Any craving or clinging? So this could be a more reflective mode of practice. That is where you use your vitakka vichara, your thought and examination. That will prevent from falling asleep. Or could also be a practice like loving kindness that produces energy. You feel the connection with others. And it's very, for many people, experience that as a joyful, energizing practice. So you might need one to settle the mind, one to energize the mind. And then I think ideally on the long run, maybe also one style of practice that is provocative of wisdom, that is geared to the development of wisdom, insight, understanding, into the deeper nature of things, about seeing anicca, dukkha, anatta, conditionality. So it could be a practice related to the 5 aggregates, where you contemplate them and see them in the light of anicca, dukkha, or anatta, feelings, perceptions. Can you not just noticing the feeling or noticing perceptions coming out, but also, are they changing or not? Are they permanent or not? Does this good feeling give me lasting, will it give me lasting happiness? So it's a bit of investigation, direct seeing. So this is very often that we find this in the suttas where the Buddha encourages the 5 aggregates as a framework for seeing anicca, dukkha, anatta. So with these 2-3 practices sprinkled throughout the day or over multiple days, I think as a lay practitioner or a monk, the same, you will be doing well. And you also have to know when to use what. So not just stubbornly always use, no, now this year I use only samatha, next year I use only vipassana. There's the simile of the cook, where a good cook observes what the client, no, it's not called client, how do you call it? What the
King?
the guest or the king in the sutta itself, yes, what the guest takes. So he provides food, but he also observes, what does the king take? The same way the meditator practices the satipatthana, but also observing, now is the time to energize the mind, to settle the mind, to develop wisdom. So at the beginning of the meditation session, before you start, you hold in for a moment. Okay, what is my mental state now like? Am I energized enough? Am I a bit drowsy? And then based on that, you can choose then one or the other meditation method. And then for sutta reading, sutta studies, I think people who are visiting your YouTube channel, they are doing well already because there's naturally exposure to that. And we're reading suttas on your own. And if you can do that on a regular basis, even for just 20 minutes a day, that's fantastic. Just having the contact, the direct contact with the Buddha himself, or as close as we can get to the Buddha through the suttas. That is very valuable. So these 2 things together, you don't have to worry. Definitely, there will be progress.
Bhante, in terms of sutta study and just bringing up energy, Venerable Dhammasiha, Ajahn Dhammasiha went on there's a YouTube video of him taking a tour of SBS, and he goes into your library, and you've got some fascinating systems in place for, there's this conundrum, like, do you just let all of the monks in your monastery have phones and listen to, or do whatever they want? Do you have no limits, or do you just say absolutely no phones? There are some monasteries that do that. If you have a phone at Ajahn Dun's, if you've used a phone in the last 3 months, you can't sit patimokkha. You're not a normal monk, basically. Whereas at other monasteries, it's just total free-for-all, people using phones or whatever throughout the day. I'm curious if you could say a bit more about your system, just to let, for other monasteries or also for lay people as well, just how, a very well thought out system can be put into place for when lay people even want to take a break from their phones or their devices. How do you put boundaries around this useful medium?
Yeah, when you said it so well already just now, it can be a very useful medium or useful tools, phones, laptops, technology in general. Yet, at the same time, many practitioners, we have also recognized the danger inherent in it, especially the danger that comes with access to the internet. So even though we might start out with some Dhamma research or listening to a Dhamma talk online, And then on the side of the algorithm in YouTube or whatever platform we use, the same time, many practitioners, we have also recognized the danger inherent in it, especially the danger that comes with access to the internet. So even though we might start out with some Dhamma research or listening to a Dhamma talk online, and then on the side of the algorithm in YouTube or whatever platform we use, there are hundreds of suggestions of things that are way more flashy than most Dhamma talks. Yeah. So we're basically constantly competing against the temptation of that algorithm suggests for us. And he knows pretty well what we want, what we really want on an emotional level. So as you have said, some limitations can be helpful and supportive. Now in SPS, what we do is in the library, we do have gadgets like laptops, but they are not connected to the internet in general. We have an internal server, a file server, where many Dhamma books are available. Dhamma talks have been downloaded, even videos in the past, and collected over many years actually. And so there's plenty of Dhamma material to listen and view, more than you can listen in a lifetime. So for that reason, actually, we don't need to be connected to the internet for that purpose. So plenty of material available. And then there's the safety that we don't get sidetracked by other things that the algorithm might otherwise propose. And then there are other websites that are clearly very wholesome or Dhamma related, like Sutta Essential, Access to Insight, and others, or digital Pāli reader, Pāli study tools, where, yeah, you can do nothing wrong there, basically. So again, what we have in SPS is a whitelist. So even though these computers in the library, I said earlier, they're not connected to the internet, more accurately speaking, they are partially connected. There are some websites that will work, exactly those that I mentioned earlier. So we have a list of Dhamma websites that are very wholesome, very beneficial, good resources. And we would want the monks actually to use those because, yeah, it's just faster, more convenient than trying to find things in a book. You can use search functions. You can have all the Nikayas together in one ebook and then just search in English. Nowadays, just search in English and it will find you the passage that you're looking for. So things like that. So we try to combine both. There's a limitation, but then also there's allowance for what seems beneficial and useful. And then lastly, on top of that, if somebody really wants from time to time to have a conversation with their parents or friends or Dhamma friends, whatever, they have a ticketing system where a week you would have 2 or 3 opportunities whenever you want for 45 minutes. So you can claim the internet ticket, you will have internet access for 45 minutes, and then after 45 minutes, it goes off. You can have that 3 times a week if you want. That is unlimited internet, not limited only to Dhamma websites. So you would be able to check your emails or have a Zoom chat with family members or things like that. But you cannot spend the whole day just browsing, surfing, chit-chatting online. So in this way, we try to accommodate for both.
I feel like that's the most well-balanced system I've honestly ever heard at a monastery for this. And I think Ajahn Kobilo might start issuing me tickets. Not that I misuse the internet, but Bhante, first, usually we'd be going over to Zoom now, but actually we really wanted to take a full hour at least with Bhante Ariyadhammika. So for those waiting to go to Zoom, just maybe wait a little longer. And honestly, there's so much to go into here. But one aspect we really wanted to give more room for you to speak about is just the kind of full scope and unique training at SBS. So, just that small topic. But what I thought I could do is we're going to screen share the monastic training 17 points from your website. And if you wouldn't mind just sort of speaking to, sort of as we move down that list, speaking to those various points. Here, let me get this. I think we can go like this. Speaking to the various points here There we go.
Is that good enough? Good zoom in.
You zoom in. Speaking to these various points, as if you're talking to a sort of a listening monk from the Ajahn Chah tradition, say, so sort of like, you know, for those in the audience, sort of speaking to those who know a bit of the grounding, but yeah, I'm very interested in what you have to say about these points.
Well, monk training, as you know, in the Ajahn Chah lineage as well, we have monk training centers. The particular foremost ones is probably Wat Bananaja, Abhayagiri, Amaravati. These are the first ones that come to mind. But then also every monk training center has emphasis, their strengths in slightly different areas. And everyone tries to find a balance, obviously. And one thing also I would like to mention is monk training is commonly understood as something that is important for newly ordained monks. So the first 3 years, 5 years as a monk, very important to get proper guidance and training. However, the way I understand monk training goes way beyond the first 5 years. I think even for a 10, 20 Vassa monk, there are still things to learn, to improve, and to get better at. Not only in meditation, there's so many areas that monk training can involve, that at different phases of your monastic life, you can learn and improve on. So monk training, as I see it, never ends really. Even for myself, I'm still learning things and improving in different areas. So, but we have identified 12 or 13. You mentioned 17, or maybe there are some hidden ones.
Oh, no. 14. 14's plenty.
But the major ones at the beginning would be, and a lot of emphasis at first, is meditation theory and practice. Theory means understanding also which meditation method good for, what are its strengths, what are its limitations, and then gaining familiarity with it, or with a few of them, so that you have a bit of a toolkit. Like when you want to build a house, it's nice to have a screwdriver, a hammer, but you cannot do everything just with a screwdriver. Sometimes you need a hammer. Sometimes you need other tools. So in meditation also like that. So one important aspect, especially in the early years of our spiritual path, is to explore and gain familiarity, not with 40 plus necessarily meditation methods, but at least with a small handful. As I said earlier, at least one method is good to have always at hand that helps to tranquilize the mind, another one to energize the mind, and something also that will arouse wisdom. So this is quite important, and therefore also we meet regularly, typically once a week, make myself available individually for residents. Then also the second point, it says here, Dhamma knowledge and proper attitude towards the scriptures. So not just memorizing like a parrot on a pirate ship, but also being able to know how to question the scriptures, how to use them, to understand their purpose. Different texts have different purposes. Vinaya texts have a different purpose from suttas and vice versa. And also can be questioned the suttas even, or if you compare maybe with Chinese parallels, you can find even there some differences. So the attitude is also quite important towards the suttas. The same for the Vinaya. It's not enough just to know the rules, but also how to implement them in one's daily life, knowing the offenses, the non-offenses, but then also how can I do that without being so difficult to support? If I have a long list of requirements when I visit my parents or a friend, and then it's so difficult for them to look after us because we have so many special needs, almost like a handicapped person, then also it's not enjoyable to look after the monk. So also knowing how to communicate the Vinaya, how to make ourselves easy to support, but also how to request support in areas where it is important and necessary. So this is not just Vinaya knowledge, but also about how to implement it in different life circumstances. Abhidhamma knowledge. Now, we don't emphasize heavily on Abhidhamma here in SPS, But to have a basic familiarity with the basic principles can be useful, because also sometimes we meet monks from other traditions, so that when we have a Dhamma conversation, we can understand the terminology. And also we have been having some exposure to those principles, so that when there's a difference to the suttas, we can recognize that. Oh, that's different. So Abhidhamma knowledge, but also scrutiny of that knowledge in the light of early Buddhist teachings. So it's not just about knowing it, but also knowing differences where the Abhidhamma goes beyond what we see in the early teachings. Then number 5 here mentioned knowledge and memory of important chants like Metta Sutta, Mangala Sutta, both in Pāli and English, so that we also know the meaning of what we chant. I quite like the chanting book we find in Wat Bananajat, Abhayagiri, Amaravati, where they do line-by-line recitation, Pāli and English. And here in SBS also, we actually used their chanting book as a basis for our own chanting book. And then we added some additional chants that they also find useful, that our community chose to, yes, we want to memorize those also. But so then you have a vocabulary of important Dhamma phrases that help you not only when you want to give a Dhamma talk, but also in your own meditation, in your own reflections. Sometimes these phrases come back that you've memorized. It's different from just looking it up somewhere in the books or having it really with you all the time in your heart. So I gradually came to understand the value of memorization for that purpose also.
Bhante, quickly, can you just name 1 or 2 suttas that you chose to add to the SBS's chanting book that weren't there in the others that you found important?
Sure. Well, one that is very close to the DNA of SBS, you can say, is the Mahabodhisa Sutta, the 4 great standards, where the Buddha basically says, whatever a teacher, however well-known a teacher or a sangha or good reputation a person has, whatever he claims to be the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, compare it with the suttas, compare it with the Vinaya. If it is in line with that, accept it, adapt it. If it's in contradiction to that, if you compare it, even though it's a well-known teacher, tradition, whatever, but it's not in line with what the Buddha says in the suttas or Vinaya, reject it. Don't accept it. So it goes through a few permutations in that sutta. So I found that very important as a attitude framework for how to relate to contemporary teachers, including myself, so that we need to always come back to the Buddha himself and compare what did the Buddha say about that. And if it's not in line, we can put it aside. If it is in line, we accept it. So this is one that we added. Another one, for example, the principles of non-decline, of a community that wants to live in harmony, that wants to flourish, whether it's a Buddhist community or any community for that reason. So the Buddha outlined important principles like meeting regularly, meeting in harmony, and conducting the affairs of the Sangha in harmony, having a shared view, shared virtues, similar standards. So that also I found very important. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, then other things, also practical skills, sewing ropes, making brooms, how to live under a tree, going on thudong. So these are kind of more hands-on, practical, daily life things. For forest monks, also important over time to learn and get familiarity with. And again, this is an area where I would think, and I'm pretty sure that other monasteries, other monk training centers like Wat Bananajat have actually even more expertise than you would find here in SBS about sewing ropes, making brooms. They go even further. They make bowl stands and toothwood. So some of those things we don't do in SBS on a regular basis. Yes, sewing ropes we do, making brooms, but then also how to live out in the jungle, how to find water, under which trees can you camp, and which trees are quite dangerous because a branch might fall down when the first rain or wind comes. So once a year, I take the Sangha in SBS into a deep jungle, sometimes in Malaysia, sometimes in Thailand. We might go to Sri Lanka at some point. So where we then stay for a couple of weeks in a jungle and just surviving on the bare minimum. So that's also part of monk training in SPS. So living out in the open, very simplicity, simple lifestyle. And yeah, and most monks quite enjoy that, I have to say. Then next one, developing of research skills, particularly Pāli-based research, Dhamma research, online. Nowadays, new tools are coming up where you could start using chatbots or kind of large language learning models like ChatGPT or Norbu. ChatGPT is actually a bit broad. It brings in data and information from so many areas, whereas SPS also actively supports a large language learning model that focuses on early Buddhist literature only. Yeah. Basically, it's called Norbu, Norbu EBD, Norbu, and there's a subsection with EBD, early Buddhist texts. And so you can feed that chatbot whatever you want him to know. So it's not connected to the internet. It cannot just grab data from online discussion forums or something. But we have given him the suttas, we have given him the Vinaya texts, and the parallels in the Chinese agamas. That's all it knows, you know. It's like if you have a baby, but you don't speak with him anything else other than suttas, Vinaya, and early Buddhist texts. That's all it knows.
Bhante, I appreciate that encouragement. I tried Norbu for a while and then was finding that it was so honest that whereas like a GPT bot, would just hallucinate an answer. I ask it something about early Buddhist texts and it would, make up an answer. Sometimes it would get it right. But Norbu, I think I tried it like a month or two ago and I asked it several questions and it just kept saying, actually, I just don't know. I can't say for sure. So you should, go ask a human. Yeah. And I was kind of disappointed a little bit, but
no, it's actually a feature. It looks like a bug, but it's actually a feature in that something that is not mentioned in the suttas, it wouldn't know. It cannot make things up because it knows nothing else. So when it doesn't know something, that tells you most likely it's not mentioned in the suttas. So that's the very purpose, whereas everyone else makes things up. Not just chatbots, even monks and Dhamma teachers use their own creativity to give an answer. And sometimes it's just refreshing to have a tool that says, I don't know. It's not mentioned in the suttas, therefore I don't know.
A chatbot that
of course, if you ask him comparison with Mahayana with early Buddhist teachings, it can't do that either. It knows nothing about Mahayana because Mahayana is not mentioned in the early scriptures. So it's a very down-to-earth, very reliable source.
Honest, yeah.
A chatbot.
Honest, I like that. Honest. I never thought of that, but thanks for that. So yeah, research skills with modern technology, also basic level Pāli. Within the first 5 years, I do think it's good to learn also Pāli, not on a professional level, but at least that you can, maybe with the help of a dictionary, can translate things or look things up, go to the root of certain terms, and just get a deeper understanding of the scriptural language that we use in our theravada tradition. And particularly for Dhamma research, that you can use research tools like digital Pāli reader or others. That is also useful. So we have Pāli courses going on all year, except during Vasa. So we have a Pāli teacher, a very good one. And so there's Pāli courses going on as well. These are voluntary. So normally I would not recommend for a newly ordained monk straight away, but maybe after your second or after your third Vasa, having memorized maybe already the chantings from the chanting book. At that time, you have a familiarity already with the language, and then going a bit more formal Pāli studies can be useful.
I'm very interested in hearing you speak to number 9, nonviolent communication. Ajahn Kofiel and I use constantly the observation, feeling, need, request framework. We add in gratitude to make it Goffner, gratitude, observation, feeling, request. But would you speak about number 9, please?
Yeah, I mean, as you know very well on your own, that communication, especially when you live in a community, which everyone does, whether it's in a family, in a monastery, or the workplace, there's always some community you're part of. So community life can be fantastic, or it can be hell. You choose. And the difference between the two is actually very close. The main difference is how we communicate with each other. That is what determines, in most cases, 99% of cases, whether we get along with each other or not. It all hinges on communication. And nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg is a tool that encapsulates many of those core principles. How can we have maybe a difficult conversation about something I want to be done differently, but without making it as a demand to the other person, but still communicating clearly my feelings, my needs, and requesting, if possible, for some improvement that helps both of us ideally. So this is very a useful tool I find in the community, which is why we introduced it to SPS. It is something that we meet. Again, it's a voluntary workshop or ongoing course that we do on a weekly basis, where one session a week we come together, those who are joining, typically 5, 6, 7 months. And then maybe after a year or two, then they drop out, maybe they sign up for another course. Because if you do everything at the same time, Pāli course, nonviolent communication, research skills, and many other things, well, then there's no more time to meditate. So you choose at different times, different courses. Normally they come to check in with me first, and then I might have a recommendation. But sometimes also people are very eager to do something even before the intended time, then it's also okay, of course. So yeah. And then the last few points that you can see here, these are more for, I would say, Majjhima monks who are already a bit established, maybe for 5 years, or then also 10 years and later, where you also learn how to develop skills for giving Dhamma talks, how to give a Dhamma sharing, how to structure a Dhamma talk, how to use modern tools, how to illustrate. Āyasmā Rahula, for example, he's very good in creating slides to support his Dhamma sharings and online presentations, but also just for normal Dhamma talks, how to speak in front of an audience, how to present, how to use one's voice. So there's actually skills that can be developed. Not everyone is a gifted speaker just by nature. I'm definitely not. So, but like many things, can be trained, can be learned, can be developed. So this is something that typically starts with 4 vasa, just before they become 5, then I include them in that Dhamma talk training workshop, so that then later, when after 5 vasa, when they travel, go places, have more exposure to devotees and lay people, maybe sometimes give a Dhamma sharing, maybe even a retreat, that they have some foundation in that already.
I think it's interesting. There's a sutta called the Vimuttayatana Sutta, where it speaks about the 5 bases of liberation, which I'm sure you know, Bhante, because this training system really touches all of them. It says a monk has their Dhamma taught to them, or they teach the Dhamma. And we honestly have found that to be quite powerful as a means for our own Dharma learning. Ajahn will call me on stuff that I get wrong, or I'll look skeptically at him now and again, but more rarely, and then recitation of the Dhamma out loud and memorization, recitation internally, and or a meditation object is properly grasped and comprehended with wisdom. And just to say, like, how rare it is to come across a monastic training center, which really, it's easy to become imbalanced, and it's quite inspiring to see this this list, honestly, and this system of training you set up there. So just thank you.
Yeah, because those paths to liberation, I mean, they lead to pamoja, to well-being. It's this whole well-being cascade, which then leads to joy and eventually samadhi. But yeah, no, this is an amazing system, and gosh.
Yeah, thank you, Erwin. It's still a work in progress. As community members join, we refine things, we add things, we remove things. So it's also a very organic thing that keeps developing in refinement and so on as time goes on. But yeah, I'm very happy to share. And that's why also you can see the last few points, administrative and leadership skills, where there's also an opportunity for even more senior monks to come and stay maybe for a period in SPS and then learn about how to run a monastery, how can a management committee be set up, how the more the organizational background of monastic lifestyle, and how to run a Buddhist society or a monastery in that sense. Because also not every monk, at least most of us, we don't have an economics background or accounting background. I mean, accounting is not part of it anyway, but there are many things that have to do with legal things sometimes, or how to structure things. So, yeah.
Bhante, I kind of wish we had been part of that leadership class like 3 years ago, but it's going on.
You're doing well. You're doing well. You're doing well. You might not need it, but definitely, I've been to many places and monasteries, particularly in Buddhist countries, where a lot of resources are actually wasted because the abbot or senior monk, well, he might be a very inspiring, charismatic figure, but that doesn't make him into a good administrator, into a good kind of person who knows how to deal with resources or how to organize things. So these are very different skill sets. So therefore, often either you learn it yourself, or maybe you have a second monk there who fulfills that role, who has more of that background, or maybe even from his education, or just naturally more gifted in this area. So yeah.
One thing, Bhante, the sort of final question I was hoping, for a layperson who's listening to this and maybe impressed and inspired by the training, and just gauging internally the difference between the life they have and this life of seclusion and training and study. Do you have any words of encouragement for those listening in that situation? Like, really sort of giving them inspiration that they can also practice sincerely and make progress on this path despite not having these exact conditions.
Well, it's completely right, as you say already. And to be honest, I have seen and met lay people, both in Malaysia and also other countries, who have better practice, way better practice than some of the monks I've met. So there's I wouldn't say no correlation at all, but there has definitely, it's not an impossibility as a layperson to use that form to develop the Dhamma, the qualities of that the Buddha outlines, to overcome unwholesome states, to develop wholesome states, to learn the Dhamma, to practice in daily life. Why not? Do you breathe in? Do you breathe out? Yes. Oh yeah, then you have a meditation object. You don't need to be a monk to practice mindfulness of breathing. Do you have a community around you? Family? Friends? Oh yeah, very good. Then you can practice nonviolent communication. Then you can practice right speech. Do you have a livelihood? Well, then you can practice right livelihood. So all the Dhamma principles are available. And we know from the suttas also, there have been very accomplished lay practitioners whom the Buddha elevated and declared foremost in different categories, both in terms of wisdom, also supporters of the monastic community, and being good Dhamma talkers, teachers even, lay teachers. So there's no limitations in terms of that. I compare it sometimes with a vehicle. If you can go from A to B, and you can go in a limousine. It's very nice, it's very comfortable. You have entertainment system there, it's very comfy, and you will get there. Or you can also go from A to B in a race car, in a Formula One car. Well, the race car tends to be faster than the limousine, but you don't have the same comforts. There's no entertainment system inside. You have a strong engine and strong brakes. The strong engine are the suttas, the brakes are the Vinaya, to prevent you from going overboard. But only the bare minimum. And that, of course, that emphasis on the core teachings only, and you do nothing else, that opportunity just to dedicate your whole life just to that, of course, you will progress faster for most people in average, but it doesn't mean that's the only way. Definitely not. So you can go with a little bit more comfort, and it doesn't have to be full limousine style either. There are many vehicles in between that. So you choose a vehicle for that period of time that fits to your lifestyle. that fits to your amount of renunciation, dedication. But Dhamma practice, you might consider that important in your life, but maybe not the only thing that you want. You might also have good family relations, right? Many of the monks, I haven't seen my family for 3 years now, or 3.5 years. We are living far away. So there are sacrifices involved. You can't have everything. Then you might want to have a stable income. Well, you have to look after that. You want to meet with friends from time to time, get to see movies. We have none of that. So there are sacrifices involved, but you have to know what are your priorities in life, and then cut out those things that are not your priority. How much time do you want to spend on social media? Maybe some time is okay, but there's probably limitations where most people would say, no, this is getting a bit much. And then freeing up some time for the formal practice, for meditation, listening to Dhamma talks, things like that. So there's no one size fits all, I think. But finding a way, a vehicle, so to speak, that has the right amount of required comfort that you may need, but also has enough speed and lightness to progress further. And then you adjust accordingly.
Right. Holy life race car is the most exciting monastic metaphor I've ever heard. I love it. I love it.
We had the Waze app. My mom found a way, I think, to make it have a boy band voice, and I feel like this is the Ariyadhammika kind of version of directions. So, on that not so good joke, I'm gonna wrap up. Bhante, it was such a pleasure having you. We honestly, each time we've spoken to you, we've really appreciated the connection, and maybe someday we'll get you to visit here, and someday perhaps we'll get to visit you.
Well, it's always a pleasure connecting with both of you, the wider community, and as last time, always an invitation, come for a visit to SPS, either yourselves or we also have a retreat center connected to our monastery for those who just want to have a time off for meditation practice, individual practice, that's also fine. But then also for the Sangha, of course, always invitation. Come, join us for a moment, for a couple of weeks or months, and then we go separate ways again. So yeah, it's always nice connecting with you. And I wish you also all the best for your own project coming up. And I have no doubt that you will be doing well. And you have inspired many. And please continue to do so. Sadhu, all the best.
Those who want can join on Zoom. I just pasted the link in the chat. And we'll see everyone again soon.
Okay.